Hi, boys and girls. Let's review the overall structure of a story. So, parts of a story. All right, remember, a story is divided into 3 parts. You have beginning, middle, and end. Which part of a story closes the story? This part solves the problem. That is your ending. Your ending closes the story and it solves your problem. Which part of the story introduces the characters? It also tells you the setting of the story. That's the beginning. The beginning of the story will tell you the characters. It'll tell you the problem the character has and where the character is at, the setting. All right, what part of your story has all the major action? Everything's happening in this part of the story. You'll learn about the major problem that the character has and all the challenges that they're going through. Lots of action in this part of the story. That's your middle. All right, so one more time. Beginning introduces the story. You learn about your characters and their setting. In the middle, you have all of your action. That's where you find out the major trouble that the character's going through and all the challenges they have to overcome. And then at the end, the problem is solved and the story closes. So we solved the problem, it's closing. All right, now yesterday, let me make a mark, so let me move. We read about the case of the missing mutt. All right, so we read about Mrs. Brown's dog, Snippets. And we read about Marty, who was searching. Marty was on the case of the missing mutt. All right, you guys were supposed to answer the questions yesterday. So let's go over the answers today. All right, what is Mrs. Brown's problem at the beginning of the story? Mrs. Brown thinks someone has stolen her dog, Snippets. Marty doesn't want to help Mrs. Brown. Snippets has become lost in the dog park. Snippets has found a way to open the gate. All right, we're looking at the beginning of the story. Oop, it changed back on me. Go back to my highlighter. All right, so we're at the beginning of the story. So at the beginning, we have Mrs. Brown say, I think someone has, keeps changing on Miss Fires. She said, I think someone has stolen Snippets. So, in the beginning, what is her problem? Mrs. Brown thinks someone has stolen her dog, Snippets. So that's A. All right, number 2. When does Marty first get the idea that Snippets wasn't stolen? All right, was it when he finds Mrs. Brown crying? When he sees the leaf bags by the fence? After Mrs. Brown talks about her granddaughter, or after he goes to the dog park? All right, so we're looking for the first idea that he has. So let's start from the beginning. So he asks her what's wrong. She says, I think someone has stolen Snippets. All right, so then let's read from there. Snippets was Miss Brown's dog. I asked her why she thought he had been stolen. She said the gates were all closed tight, so he couldn't have just run off. I took a look around. Some leaf bags stood piled near one corner. I told her Snippets could have easily hopped up on the bags and over the fence. All right, so when was the first time that Marty decided that Snippets may have not been stolen? Right here. When he says, hey, you know what? Snippets could have jumped right over those, on top of those bags and hopped right over the fence. All right, so then they continue on, and then she says, why? And he says, most likely to see another dog. So that's idea number 2. And then they go on and say, my granddaughter took him to the park last week. So that's like, oh, idea number 3. Maybe that's where he's at. And then they find him there. So, when does Marty first get the idea Snippets wasn't stolen? When he sees the leaf bags. Well, it just keeps changing back on Miss Byers today. When he sees the leaf bags by the fence. All right. How is Mrs. Brown's problem resolved? All right, resolved means solved. So let's look back. All right, most likely to see another dog, I said. I asked her if Snippets had ever been to the new dog park. Miss Brown said, why, yes, my granddaughter took him there last week. I found Snippets playing with his friends at the park. All right, so how was the problem solved? Marty found Snippets where? At the park. So I will check your work. On page 263, I will check your work on that page. All right, so I will check your work there to see how well you did on that. Okay, guys, in a separate assignment, you're going to have a little quiz grade today to review the parts of a story. All right, so there's going to be 3 questions at the bottom that ask you what takes place in the beginning, middle, and end of a story. You also have a story here about Henry the bunny. So you're going to read the story about Henry. You can read it as many times as you need to. Then you're going to answer some questions. It's going to ask you questions that have to do with story structure. It's going to ask you about the character, the main character, the problem the character has, where the story takes place, what happened in the beginning, what happened in the middle, what happened in the end, okay? Just like we've been practicing. You can look up every single time and look at this story, okay? So take your time and do your best. And that will be it for reading today. All right, do your very best work today.